So I did a video on Exoprimal a little while ago. It was announced. I saw thousands of dinosaurs running at the screen, big robots and lots of guns, and I thought that sounds really cool. They've put out some extended gameplay footage, and I've gone away, I've extracted everything from it, and I've got all the details you might need to know if you want to actually play this or not. And before we get going, and I hate doing this, and I hate having to ask, but please do hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave a comment, as it just helps me get the video out there and help the channel grow. Just for those who want to know whether I will be playing this or not, I am on the fence at the moment. I don't believe the game modes are innovative enough. I don't believe there's enough exciting stuff outside of just dinosaurs running at you to keep me playing this on a regular basis, or at least put down money on it. If it's free to play, I will play this. If there's an upfront cost, it's probably highly unlikely. Anyway, getting into the game details, it is from Capcom, it's called Exoprimal, and it's a PvPvE game. And the best way to describe it, imagine you're playing WoW, you're doing a dungeon race versus another team, but at certain points you can basically interrupt the flow of their push. So, it's 5v5, you all have a robot suit, they look like warframes, it's kind of got that same visuality as Phantasy Star Online, and while there are roles, there are no locked-in roles, so you can choose a class, but you can swap to another robot suit type at any time you want. The trade-off for that is that there is a small delay when you're swapping your suit, so you kind of like turn into your human form, wait a few seconds, and then you get into the next suit. So it's not quite as fast and dynamic as I thought it might be, but you're not role-locked either, so if you've played Overwatch and you've gone through those atrocities, then you don't have to worry about that. There still is very much a holy trinity though. The tanks have their positions, DPS as well, and there are also healers that you'll need to help your team out with. There are some DPS-y support classes, but I didn't really see any of them in the game, so I'll do an update when I know more on that one. How the levels start off is that you start in the same position as your opposing team. Now on some levels they appear as ghost images, on other ones they start in a different position and you eventually meet them in the middle. You have to clear the objective that's set at a certain point, then you run to the next one, you defend it, then you run to the next one, and it's first to get to the end wins. Each of the nodes get progressively harder. Some of them will just be you have to defend a zone from a few portals opening up. Other ones are a lot bigger. There are normal swarms, and then there's what's known as a super swarm. And they are what they sound. They're just either a few dinosaurs or just tons and tons of dinosaurs. So far, I've identified 5 different dinosaurs that you fight against. There are the normal raptors, which you've probably seen in the trailers quite a bit. There's a new one, which I didn't see before, was called a gas neosaur, which is essentially just a dinosaur that runs up to you and blows up. There are sniper neosaurs, that shoot you from long distance, surprisingly. There are big tanky ones called triceratopses, and they run in and do lots of damage, and you have to focus them down and control them. And then there are the more boss level dinosaurs, and the only one I saw was a T-Rex. And it can just be one type, it can be a mixed type, it can be a whole host of them, just depending on how hard the node is. Now, in terms of the more interesting stuff, so I saw 4 classes. Some of them I didn't get the names of. The first one that I saw was Roadblock. He is the tank archetype. He has a huge shield which he uses to block the dinosaurs. He's got a taunt where he kind of hits his fist against his shield to bring the enemy to them. There's also an AoE shield bash that he can use, and he's got an ultimate that does like a hurricane fisting punch and zooms through all the enemies to do like big AoE damage. In fact, if you played Street Fighter, it looks very similar to Zangief's spinning pile driver. Then there was one of the long-range artillery style classes. This is the range DPS. I just called him Orange Dude. He has a machine gun, which is like the standard fire mode. Then there was like a missile grenade launcher with an arc. He also had a big gauze cannon on his side, which fired a laser. And then his ultimate was him firing all of the guns on his arms at the same time, but they were just 4 machine guns doing high DPS. There is a medic class in the support field. That class had a lightning gun for DPS. There was like a healing grappling hook. At least it looked like a healing grappling hook. And there was also a big AoE heal. And last but not least, there was the guy I called Long Robot Coat Guy, who was the melee DPS. He had the ability to put down like a shield wall in front of him, a bit like Roadblock, but it's a temporary measure and he couldn't control it. He also had a laser cannon, very similar to the range DPS class, but what he had different from the other classes was that he was focused around the melee DPS. There was a lot of mobility to him. He had a short range dash. He had like a double jump. It felt a bit like Genji, in fact, just with sabers in his hands. Now, in terms of game modes that they showcased, there was the just standard race where you're defending point to point to point, and then you fight a boss at the end of it. The other one is called Data Key Escort. This is essentially where you push a big square called a data key to a certain point, and basically you've got to get to the end point before your team does. Now, in the scenario that they showed, basically as they were killing dinosaurs, they got to earn what's known as a Dominator. This allows you to control one of the dinosaurs on the enemy team side and then use it, actually control it and fight off and just be a nuisance and slow them down. And the Dominator that they showed was a Triceratops. It had various abilities, like it had a charge, it could roll on its side. The Triceratops, and I'm pretty sure this is intentionally so it's not overpowered, was pretty slow and very cumbersome to control. At least that was the visuals of it. It didn't look like it could walk backwards or turn very easily, so I guess it's, making sure that it just doesn't, permanently just sit on top of the enemy. Once it's dead, you then went back to your normal body and just kept pushing. Now, at the end of the Data Key Escort, the two teams actually meet in the middle, or at least in this example they did, and then you get to engage in some PvP combat. Now, I don't know if it happens every time, but in this stalemate scenario it happened, and then basically they killed off the enemies and they shot their data core, and the winner was the last one standing. My thoughts are that this is less about a race and more about just keeping the health on your data key for as long as possible. And then when you get to the end, having more HP gives you an advantage over your opponent. Visually, the game looked very good. For the amount of dinosaurs on the screen, I thought it ran very smooth. There was a few stutters here and there, but my biggest problem overall was just the fact that all the modes, I thought, I've seen this all done before. It's nice to see a reimagination of it, but it just wasn't, it didn't raise the hairs on the back of my neck. My heart didn't, palpitate at the thought of excitement playing this game. And I just think at this moment, it's just very forgettable. And then there's that whole element that this is a PvP game mixed in with PvPvE. Historically, all of these games generally do really, really badly. Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, I can't think of any game that mixes these two aside Destiny, which, core game isn't about, the PvPvE element, that has done well at all. So at the moment, I really am on the fence on this one. I would be much happier with a game that just pits me against thousands upon thousands of dinosaurs with my friends and we're all sweating to survive and just having a good time. But alas, that is not the case, so I will give you more updates when I know more on this one. I'll be interested to know what you think about this. But that's where I'm going to leave it there. So have a great week, everyone, and I'll speak to you all soon.